Good morning. Hi, everyone. It's Naomi Wolf. I'm so excited to bring you a brand new Substack Live show, uh, part of Outspoken, which Substack Live launched just a week ago. I'm really honored to be included in it. And I'm doing a feature now, which is so important. Honestly, what a gift to our democracy. Those of you who follow my work and our work at Daily Clout, my company that I co-founded back in 2012, and the reason I co-founded it, again, for those of you who don't know, is I was a political consultant, first in the 90s and then in 2000, first for Bill Clinton's reelection campaign. Yes, I did that, mea culpa. And then for Vice President Gore's run for the presidency. And at that time, and I was also a White House spouse previous to that. At that time, I saw, and this is not a Democrat thing or a Republican thing, but this is the thing, right? This is our biggest challenge. I saw that billions of dollars could be transferred to insiders in a piece of legislation through a clause or a sentence or even just a few words. And it was very difficult to see that process, let alone to affect it. In fact, it was, even if you could get your hands on the right version of the bill, which was very difficult as a journalist, all of us journalists had trouble, if we heard about a bill in the news or there was an announcement by a member of Congress or the Senate or even by a White House spokesperson that a bill was being drafted, it was extraordinarily difficult to find the latest version. You could search on Google and there would be multiple versions. They would be out of date. You wouldn't know when the latest one was. Also, when I co-founded Daily Clout, there was no centralized place where state and federal bills could be seen in the same location. In other words, there were 50 different APIs and 50 different state assembly legislative trackers, and the federal tracker was just completely unusable. The alternatives to this day federally are congress.gov and govtrack.us. Very, very, very clunky, not intuitive. So I also saw that the people who had access to what was actually in the bills and could understand it or help draft it. Thank you, Nancy Hiller. She's asking why even the non-mainstream media is ignoring Pfizer papers. I can't tell you. We've done a lot of podcasts, but the Washington Post, the New York Times, ignore. Legacy media, ignore. It's very difficult. So it really depends on all of you to order it, share it, spread the word. But let me go back to this really important feature I'm starting today, okay? And it's going to get a little wonky, but it's going to change your life for the better so much if you just bear with me. I saw that there was this ring of incredible profit and people profiting by keeping you in the dark about legislation. And that was the multi-billion-dollar lobbying industry, $4.4 billion lobbying industry, the top 10 or 12 lobbying industries spend $31 million a year on lobbying, right? There is the $12.5 billion political advertising industry. Now, Facebook has grabbed over $9 billion of that. But you've got to understand that political consultants take 10% of that multi-billion dollar TV ad buy, radio ad buy, and pocket it. And also, Facebook doesn't let you see the bills, right? They share the political ads, but they don't let you see the bills. And it's very hard for even investors, accountants, owners of healthcare clinics, advocates in nonprofit sectors, people who need you, right? Buying a house, it's very hard for you to see the bills. We talk about the bills, the National Defense Authorization Act, or a bill to ban vaccine passports, or any number of issues in the news, but it's very rare. It's very difficult for you to see the actual bill and understand it, let alone see it in time to lobby about it, take action on it, invest on the basis of it. Well, LegiSector changes all of that. That's a new product, a new website that we have launched, and I need you to use it. I need to tell you about it, and especially if you're invested in any industry, I need you to look at it, or if you're in the nonprofit world or political world. Its news value is incredible, because what we've done, our first iteration of this product was called BillCam, and a lot of you are familiar with it. A lot of you are using it. And you can see and share socially, search, find, share socially any state or federal bill with BillCam. Well, that's been transformational, because with only a few people tweeting or posting about a bill, linking to the bill, which BillCam allows us to do, allows you to do, elected officials see that they can't hide, they can't lie, and they also are lobbied publicly, right? As opposed to when you make a phone call or sign a petition or even write an email to your elected official, it drops into darkness. You don't know if one person has emailed about that bill or phoned, or if tens of thousands have. And also the elected officials and their staff can see very popular bills gaining support, terrible bills being called out, and they can see their own constituents say, hey, I'm your constituent, this is not okay with me, or I'm your constituent, please move this forward. Let me give you an example, one of my favorite examples. We had a bill proposed by, well, two of my favorite examples. We had a bill proposed by a very obscure California Assemblywoman, Central California and Agricultural District. And no one had heard of her, but it was a really smart bill, and it took taxes off of menstrual care products. Well, why does that make sense? Because legally it's quite discriminatory. This may not be politically correct to say, but only women menstruate. So legally it's discriminatory to penalize one set of Americans for their healthcare needs. So this was a great bill. And also, childbearing age women menstruate every month, and it adds up, the costs. And so it was a very popular bill. It was a nonpartisan bill, and people loved it, and it passed. Well, before it passed, my 21-year-old intern wrote a blog about it and used BillCam to link to the actual bill on Daily Clout. And she wrote about it for the Huffington Post as well, with the actual bill. Now, immediately 16 other states saw this and saw what a great bill it was, cut and pasted the language, put in, Tennessee or Louisiana instead of California, and they were off to the races. They had an equally popular, fantastic bill. Then the European Union saw this, and they drafted their version of a bill to take taxes off of menstrual care products. It was very, very successful. It passed in many states, and it was win-win. The people who sponsored it, the people who passed it, again, not partisan, not a partisan issue. They delivered for their constituents. They did something their constituents wanted. Their constituents were able, with BillCam, to show them that it was important. And it was seamless, best practices for legislation and civic action to get something that people really needed. And it also made that Assemblywoman kind of a national figure out of nowhere, because she had a really good idea. Another example of how effective this is there was a hurricane that damaged infrastructure, houses, disaster in Puerto Rico a number of years ago. Well, there was a FEMA bill that gave funding to help people victimized by or harmed by a hurricane in Louisiana and Texas, but it left out Puerto Rico. And we found out who was in charge of those FEMA allocations. It was Representative Frellinghusen, a Republican in New York State. And we found out who his chief of staff was. And we asked people on social media if they were his constituents. I'm sorry, it was New Jersey. If they were his constituents, to go ahead and post to him, tweet to him at that time, X to him. Well, it wasn't X yet, tweet to him the bill and say, add Puerto Rico, add Puerto Rico. And it wasn't even Puerto Ricans just tweeting him. I mean, actually very few, but his own constituents cared that there were, Americans, Puerto Rico's an American territory, homeless, without healthcare, suffering, without infrastructure, and that they needed help. And so 50 people in Frellinghusen's district posted the bill cam to him and said, please add Puerto Rico. Within a week, he had a press release on his website announcing that he had added Puerto Rico to the FEMA bill. So this is why I'm always saying to you guys, don't sit still, don't be passive. We have a tool that you can use to change legislation that affects you. Now, to make it better, to stop it if it's bad, to out the people who are promoting a bad bill, to make sure they never get elected again, to shame them publicly. Like, it's so powerful. All right. And we've done this all on a shoestring. We have no budget for marketing. We've taken out no ads. It's just word of mouth. All right. That's partly why I'm here today, because I'm counting on you to spread the word. So, in addition to BillCam, we've made a 2.0 version, which is even more incredible, that I'm going to share with you today. And it's called LegiSector.com. And what I'm going to be doing with Outspoken is once or twice a week, you guys give me feedback how often you want the updates. I'm going to share headlines from LegiSector's homepage. Now, LegiSector takes all those state and federal bills, and I'll show you when I share my screen, which I'm very proud of just having mastered, because I'm an English major turned tech CEO. So, these little things can be challenging for me. But LegiSector's homepage has 25 industries that are feeds of live legislation for those industries, right? So you can see what's going on with healthcare or cannabis or defense spending or immigration. Crime and punishment is one of the ones that I'm subscribed to. Family law, right? If you're in a nonprofit and working with children or families, or abortion rights, or pro-life rights, you can see it all right there, top trending, or you can filter by latest. So I want to tell you what a game changer this is and why it's so important. And now I'm talking to people who have a professional interest in these bills or in any of these areas, but also if you can afford it, if you're just a citizen who wants to be really well informed, right? Because it's a little more expensive than BillCam. I'm sorry. BillCam is like under $15 a month. LegiSector is cheaper than our competitors, but it's $138 a month. But this is why you need it if you have any professional interest in. If you're a hedge fund manager, if you're an accountant, if you're a lawyer, if you're a real estate salesperson, if you're a real estate investor, even in your own home, your biggest asset, usually for most people, if you own your home or have a mortgage, if you're a politician, right? Certainly if you work in the nonprofit world, cannabis, energy, any one of these industries, or even if you're just trying to make smart investments in your brokerage account as an individual. Lastly, if you're a journalist or if you're a news organization, we can white label LegiSector for your news organization, for your website, right? It's so newsworthy as a journalist to see what's happening. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you in these segments the most important or the most newsworthy bills that I'm seeing in LegiSector.com's display page, display field, which you get access to when you subscribe, and you can choose an industry, right? So that way, whether you sign up for it, which I hope you do, we really need you to for many reasons for us, so we can carry on this important work of bringing you tools to actually run your own democracy the way our founders intended, or know what you're investing in, right? Know what your elected officials are doing, but also because the more people use this, the better our democracy will be, the better our legislation will be, and the better, honestly, the more financially secure you're going to be because you're investing not blind. Now, I'm going to just tell a little tiny story about myself and this API. I co-founded BillCam, which the 2.0 is LegiSector, in 2012, as I mentioned. At that time, I mean, I don't talk about this a lot, but I was really, really, really broke for many years as a single mom, independent writer. Writers don't make a lot of money, even if a lot of people read their books, or it's certainly not reliable money. And I had 2 children, and I was broke, right? I'm just going to say it. So it was scary because I had no IRA. I'm self-employed, no pension, nothing like that. And I wanted to make good use of the paltry savings that I had and the paltry brokerage account that I had. So when I had access to BillCam, again, LegiSector is the 2.0, the fancier version, with more deliverables of BillCam, I was able to see exactly what to invest in, which I couldn't have done with my financial advisor at my bank, right? He just gave me canned prospectuses. You literally don't know what you're investing in, even if you know, oh, this is, Apple, or this is, Disney. Not that I'd ever invest in Disney, but you really don't know what's going to affect that industry. Even people in that industry, without a tool like LegiSector.com, don't really know what the legislative storms coming are that are going to hugely affect their industry. That your accountant doing your taxes this year without LegiSector.com doesn't really know what he needs to tell you or what she needs to tell you to maximize your savings on your tax filing without a LegiSector.com tool. So with BillCam, the 1.0 of LegiSector, I looked at real estate, and it was just so dramatic what jumped out. You could see clearly from pending legislation or legislation that had passed where to invest and where not to invest. For instance, when you check infrastructure, if you're thinking about investing in, Hudson, New York, you can see with an infrastructure LegiSector account that they're going to be building a nuclear plant, upriver, or a sewage processing facility, right? Your broker's not going to tell you that. The real estate sections are not going to tell you that. Or solar panels. There's a huge fight in upstate New York, where we live part-time, over a giant Spanish company trying to force hundreds of acres of beautiful, pristine, scenic farmland into solar panels. And the realtors are distraught because they don't know how to stop it. It's going to crash the value of everyone's property. No one's going to want to live around these solar farms. I mean, that's well documented. Well, LegiSector.com can tell you exactly, who's pushing solar, where the solar farms are going, what states are pushing solar, where the wind farms are going, et cetera. Where not to invest, right? And how to stop those solar farms. It also tells you if you're invested in a house in the Hudson Valley. But back to when I was a broke single mom, so broke, I can't tell you, like literally, someday I'll write about this, but it's so embarrassing and shameful to be that broke in America. But, LegiSector's precursor saved me. I could see exactly where to invest my tiny savings in real estate. And I saw that in the South Bronx, there was a huge amount of infrastructure being built that was to make luxury residential housing. Now, you could literally say, and this was like 2014, you could literally say, South Bronx, what are you talking about? We all know the reputation of the South Bronx in 2014. It was a wasteland. It was a very low income, very violent, lots of graffiti, complete, toxic dumps. Kids had high rates of asthma. I mean, no disrespect to the South Bronx. Wonderful people live there, but it was not a place that if you told me in 2014, oh, you must invest in luxury real estate in the South Bronx, without Bill Cam, the precursor to LegiSector, I would have said, you're a lunatic. That was in the headlines. Why would anyone invest in the South Bronx? But I saw that they had permitted many new luxury rental developments. And what the South Bronx does have is beautiful water views and easy access to Manhattan. I saw that they were moving toxic industries out of the South Bronx, right? Moving the things that made people sick, that gave kids asthma, moving them further away. I saw that they were bringing in really important new subway infrastructure, building easier access, both to the South Bronx and out of the South Bronx to your second home in the Hudson Valley, it seemed, for the people that they were preparing to court with this infrastructure. I saw that they were going to build a beautiful riverfront park. And in 2014, there was actually literally no access to the East River, this beautiful, beautiful waterfront for the residents of the South Bronx. And I saw that these luxury apartments that were permitted were going to be, very expensive and very elegant. Well, I also saw that policing was being allocated to the South Bronx. So I knew that this was a good investment. Other things like small business loans and grants to bring in things like bookstores and wine stores and, trendy little cafes. Okay, so boom, do the math. I knew that the South Bronx was going to be the next pretty risk-free area for residential investment. And so I scraped together my tiny savings and got a mortgage and bought a rental property in the South Bronx. And it, I'm not going to tell you more details about my financial life, but I'm no longer a broke single mom. All of my investments since I began using LegiSector.com in real estate, which I'm most confident investing in, I understand it best, have 2x, 3x what I put in. So it's really good. And let me give you one other example. In California, in about 2016, I saw a bill that was going to get rid of get rid of plastic bags in supermarkets. And this bill was passing. So I advised friends of our company that, and this isn't like I don't want to say it's legal insider trading. This is public information, right? It's totally public, legit, out there information. Every bill belongs to you, the citizens. It's only the opacity and secrecy that have, that interested parties like elected officials, their cronies, lobbyists, insider industries with lobbyists have created around this valuable information to keep you from investing knowledgeably, right? And so this is public information, but it's so good that it's effectively insider information, right? Legal insider information. Please don't arrest me for saying that. It's totally public. It's totally legal. It's just corruption, essentially, and illegal opacity. I mean, these bills belong to us. Maybe it's not technically illegal, but I think it's unethical that, nothing was created by our federal government to do what LegiSector.com does. So, because you deserve all this information. So seeing this bill was passing, I advised friends of our company about it. And I'm not an investment advisor. I'm not a broker. But I told them this bill was going down the pike. And sure enough, they divested in companies that made plastics and invested in paper packaging companies and did very, very well, because that bill you notice that many places have phased out plastic bags. That bill was replicated in states around the country. So you can imagine, it seems very pedestrian. Why is Naomi taking up my morning talking about, paper products? But you multiply switching from plastic to paper in state after state after state, shopping trip after shopping trip after shopping trip. Someone's making a fortune from investing in advance of the market, people realizing, oh, there's no more plastic bags. I'm using paper. I'm so sorry.
Unknown caller.
That's spam. The people who knew that right when the legislation was about to pass or it just passed can make a fortune. The people who realize it belatedly when everyone knows it are at an investing disadvantage. So I'm not making any promises here. You're in charge of yourself. You're in charge of your financial life. But I am telling you that the difference between knowing what's coming in terms of your company's security, your client security, your investment security, and if you're in a nonprofit or an elected official, your own knowledge of how to do your job well is massive. All right, let me now turn to LegiSector, and I will show you. It's so exciting. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. So I hope you can see that. Let me take a look at this. Yes, you can. So I designed this to be beautiful. I mean, I worked with our designer, who's very talented, to make it beautiful, because something that's very disincentivizing to, engaging with legislation is how gray and boring the user interfaces are. So here you see the various sectors in legisector.com, and I'm in, right? And if you sign up, you can be in, and there's a 30-day free trial. So, pardon me, here you have finance, right? These are symbols of all the different sectors. Here you have crime and punishment. Here is the stock market. Here you have agriculture and the food supply. This is beverages, which is its own separate legislative category. Here is real estate. Here is energy. And this is what it says. LegiSector.com is your in-house lobbyist. With a touch of a button, you will receive a private custom portal to top trending bills related to your industry or your nonprofit area or your issue as a citizen. And you can jump ahead of the competition, as I've been sharing with you, by knowing and acting on upcoming legislation before it is announced in the news media, before everyone knows about the paperbacks. Investors invest with better information. Nonprofits stay ahead of big changes affecting their missions. Professional organizations can learn in advance of bills that will transform their sectors, and any user will be hyper empowered in his or her industry. So here you can see top trending bills in each industry. All right. And I'm so proud of this, because literally, having worked on creating the perfect legislative tracker for over a decade now, to me, this is the perfect legislative tracker, because the way it's packaged and organized effortlessly for you. So I'm just going to scan down so you can see, and you can see if any of these relate to you and what you do. Agriculture, alcoholic beverages, cannabis, so much cannabis. That's how I knew cannabis was going to be legal. There was suddenly legislation legalizing it across the country. Crime and law enforcement, defense, energy, environment, family-related legislation, finance, firearms and gun control, healthcare, housing, immigration, so important right now, so active, infrastructure. This is how I learned what to invest in for real estate. International, labor, jobs, employment, Medicare and Medicaid, public lands and national parks, reproductive rights. We should change that to reproductive rights and pro-life as well, because people see it in different ways, of course. Small business, so important. I have a small business. You may have a small business. Oh, well, that's important. PPP Extension Act. Investing in Main Street Act. All of these are things as a small business owner I would want to take a look at. Student loans and education. Taxes. Every accountant is going to want to know what is happening with taxes. What's affecting your tax return? Personal income tax law, gross income exclusion, that is definitely going to affect your tax return. Technology and innovation, AI Jobs Act, right? Space Act, Digit Act, developing innovation and growing, no doubt, digitalization. Telecommunications, Stopping Bad Robocalls Act, Tennessee Broadband, PACT Act, Platform Accountability, United States-Mexico Economic Partnership Act, trade, interesting. Israel Anti-Boycott Act. If you're a journalist, you'll want to pop that right open and see what that's about. A lot of activity on trade agreements with our partners that no doubt are changing or being updated because of President Trump's actions. China Technology Transfer Control Act of 2019. We could find out the status of that. Transportation and motor vehicles. Interesting. Transportation and motor vehicles. Voting rights, so newsworthy. Again, if you're a journalist or a citizen relating to elections, eliminate certain primary elections, and legislation relating to absentee ballots, which is how the Democrats steal elections over and over. Related to holding elections on uniform, I'm guessing, election days. Automatic voter registration. So there are a lot of bills to clean up our election integrity issues. So those are the main industries, and you can see that they change in real time. So there are some of these I wanted to take a look at and show you. And I want to see if there are any comments in the questions. Let's see. Netislabi says, I heard about vaccine passports in 2016, about adult shots in 2017. I couldn't believe it. So there's so much about this. And let's see if we can find in healthcare anything related to, well, here's the CARES Act. That's very interesting. Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, healthcare, no vaccine passport act. That's one of the ones I was looking for. So this is so beautiful. I can't even believe how beautiful it is. Here's the No Vaccine Passports Act. This symbol, this icon says that it's federal and not a state bill. And this is a summary. And it says this bill introduced in the House of Representatives aims to prohibit government agencies from issuing vaccine passports or any standardized documentation that certifies an individual's COVID-19 vaccination status to third parties. It also prohibits the sharing or publication of any COVID-19 vaccination records or similar health information. Additionally, the bill states that proof of COVID-19 vaccination cannot be required for access to federal property or services or for access to congressional grounds or services. So this is so important. I know those of you who follow my work or who follow Children's Health Defense or Vigilant Fox or War Room know that we've been trying to introduce something like this or have this happen. Well, it has been introduced. It exists, meaning it can get passed. All right, but it hasn't been passed yet, but it could get passed. So here you can read the bill text itself. And it was introduced on June 5th, 2021. And I just want to take a little moment because I'm very proud of the fact that all of spring of 2021, Daily Clout was warning people about vaccine passports. And so was War Room, to their credit, Steve Bannon. So it was introduced in the House in 2021. And its status and history is that it was referred to the Committee on Oversight and Reform, but it hasn't moved, what they say, out of committee. All right. So you can see who the sponsors are. And that's kind of a big deal, because you see that big red bar at the bottom of everybody's bio. What does that mean? It means they're all Republican, one Democrat. Okay. Representative Debbie Lesko. Everyone else, Chip Roy, Greg Stube, Ben Klein, they're all, there's Lauren Boebert. They're all Republicans. So I think that that's very useful because you don't have to guess about who's doing what in Congress or in your state house. You can see right there with every bill, what party should you be voting for? If it was all blue with one Republican, I would share that with you, or the platform shares that with you. But this bill, to stop, it's clear from this that it is Republicans right now in history who made the effort to draft and launch a Stop Vaccine Passports bill. Now, if you're just a citizen, you can email, phone, or fax all of these people and say, I support this bill, please move it forward, get it out of committee. And there's their email and contact information right there. You can also post it on X. You can post it on Facebook. And you're not just posting the summary, you're posting the actual bill text. You can phone these people, these guys and girls. You can phone Debbie Lesko and say, thank you. I'm not putting words in your mouth. You may approve or disapprove. But if it was me, I'd be phoning Debbie Lesko and saying, thank you for, being the only Democrat to support this, to sponsor this bill, to co-sponsor this bill. And so you want to move it out of committee, but you can also read the bill text, and you have an AI summary, and there's the actual bill text. Are you blown away? And this would solve all of our problems about vaccine passports. Maybe we'd want to refer, it's short too. It's a very understandable, readable bill that makes sense. Maybe we'd want to update it a little for all vaccines should not be coerced. All vaccines should not be in a vaccine passport. Never use vaccine passports for any reason. But there you have it. So when you're saying, what can I do? What can I do? This is what you can do. And then you can share that bill through social media right from LegiSector.com. But let me give you a business example rather than a current events example. Let's see. Crime and law. Let's go to immigration. That's also newsworthy. It's not really immigration. This is fascinating. A bill to amend the National Voter Registration Act to treat U.S. Citizen and Immigration Services field officers as voter registration agencies and for other purposes. Oh my God, you guys. And this is from last year. This is so bad. And I've never seen this before, but you need to see it. Again, this is a federal bill, SB 3712, and this is the AI summary. The bill aims to amend the National Voter Registration Act of 1993 to include ICE, United States Citizen and Immigration Services field officers as voter registration agencies. This means that these field offices where nothing but illegal immigrants, and I guess some legal immigrants, appear for processing will now be designated as places where new citizens can register to vote. What? This bill also highlights that the responsibilities of the United States Citizen and Immigration Services include overseeing the naturalization of new citizens, which involves administering naturalization ceremonies and processing naturalization. It emphasizes that these offices have the ability to help new citizens efficiently apply for voter registration. So instead of arresting them at the border, this is definitely a Biden era bill, right? This is what the Trump administration was voted in to stop. Instead of arresting illegals at the border and deporting them, this would turn the the immigration services into a voter registration arm and naturalize people right there who have crossed the border illegally. Oh my God, I don't believe it. The specific changes in the bill allowing these field offices to be considered voter registration agencies, developing procedures for naturalized citizens to apply to register to vote through these offices, and authorizing funds to support voter registration services provided by the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. Furthermore, the bill authorizes voter registration activities at court naturalization ceremonies, ensuring that the director of U.S. Citizen and Immigration Services can conduct registration activities during these ceremonies without seeking reimbursement for costs, meaning people can, or agencies can, pocket the funds dedicated to this pretty much. And this is the history of it. In early 2024, it was read twice and referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. And like, don't be surprised when you see top trending bills, and this is a top trending bill, in which a lot hasn't happened recently, because that's the nature of our system. If you don't stop this, it could get moved ahead at any time. Or if you don't advance a good bill, and I'm not presuming to say what you consider to be a good bill or a bad bill, it can get stopped at any time, right? So it's normal for things to, quote unquote, die in committee, or languish is a better word. But it's still a bill, still in committee. So, oh my God, who's responsible for this? What do you know? Cory Booker, Bernie Sanders, Sheldon Whitehouse, Tim Kaine, Brian Schatz. There's Elizabeth Warren, Senator Markley, Ray Lujan, that seems like an error, but Ben Cardin, whom I used to so admire, Peter Welch, Richard Durbin, Catherine Masto. They are all Democrats. They are all Democrats. And so I'm not going to tell you what this is, but to me, this is clearly a Democratic strategy to secure future elections by just letting people in who are not United States citizens and turning them into citizens. So that is shocking, shocking. And you can see exactly who did it. And I didn't mean to choose these bills to showcase good bills from Republicans and bad bills from Democrats. You may think that, the vaccine bill is a terrible bill. You may want vaccine passports, and you may think it's great to turn the law enforcement agency, or the agencies that are supposed to process illegal immigrants and send them back, into voter registration agencies. But you cannot hide, right? You can't hide who's doing it, right? And you have the power to see it in advance. Now, let's look, again, I keep getting distracted by the news because I'm a journalist, but let's look at Russian influence. Let's look for a bill related to something that affects your bottom line. So energy and water development relating to condominium associations. Let's see. So this shows that it's a state bill, and this little icon shows that this is Hawaii. And this is from 2017, but again, it's still live and it's active and it's moving. There's a lot happening with it, or there was. So there you can see that it's a Democratic bill sponsored by Democrats, and it relates to condominium associations. So if you own or invest in condominiums in Hawaii, you'll want to be aware of this bill and its status. And you can also sign up for notifications. So you'll see a bill changing, and this may stay dormant or it may move, right? And this is the status it's introduced. So parts 1 through 4 clarify the process, including payment obligations, mediation requirements, and triggers for further default, where a condominium unit owner and association reach a payment plan to resolve a non-judicial foreclosure. Establishes procedures that provide condominium owners with the right to submit disputed legal fees, penalties or fines, late fees, lien filing charges, or other charges, except for common expense assessments to the mediation process prior to payment and makes conforming amendments. Part 5 expands the scope of the condominium education trust to cover voluntary binding arbitration between interested parties, amends the conditions that mandate mediation, and exceptions to mandatory mediation. So literally this is a really good bill to show you as an example of how LegiSector.com can protect your assets. It, as a real estate investor in exactly this kind of property, small condominiums, residential condominiums for rental, I can see right now that I am never going to invest in Hawaii. And I also see, it's very interesting. I can't help thinking of the fires in Hawaii because what this bill does is, and I'm sure if I looked, I would find other similar bills if I looked for Hawaii and real estate, is that it shows that there's a group of Democrats in Hawaii that don't respect property rights, or I'm going to try to put it in a democratic, nonpartisan way. There's a group of legislators in Hawaii who support tenants' rights. And because even with just that AI summary, you can see that you don't get to sue your tenant very easily if they stop paying you, right? If you're a condo owner, it has to go to arbitration or mediation. And you're kind of compelled to go into mediation. And there's all kinds of paperwork you need to file. You can't just get rid of or sue a tenant who damages your property or stays too long without paying for their rent or fees. So I would look at this and think I will never, ever, ever invest in Hawaii. Now, of course, I would want to look at other comparable, more recent bills and see if that trend is still happening. But this is moving. So the record of this bill, or it was in 2017. So the record of this bill is it's paused. It could be that the people who are behind it, their term was up, or they got out, but I don't know, got bought out by someone else. Please don't sue me. But there was a lot of activity on it, right? Someone was determined to pass it. So that's the kind of thing that if you own property in Hawaii, you really want to regularly see what kind of legislation relates to property in Hawaii. You want those notifications. And again, as a potential investor, that is just such a red flag. I mean, you see similar bills in New York State, in Massachusetts. It's very hard to evict tenants in New York State. And by looking at LegiSector.com, you can search New York State or get notifications for real estate and see exactly what kind of hurdles you're going to need to face as a landlord or as a tenant, right? If you're thinking about renting in a given state, you want to check your rights and the legislation affecting you in that state. So those are 3 examples. I don't see other comments. But that doesn't mean there aren't any. Sometimes it takes a while. If there is a bill you want me to look at, let me know. I think that I really want to look at the immigration bill. Hold on, please. Well, let's look at cannabis for something else to invest in. Let's look at Virginia. So this is a Virginia bill. You can tell from here. Oh, wow. So this is a 2022 bill, so fairly recent, about the Virginia Cannabis Control Authority and the allocation of revenues. So that's very interesting. So let's see what's going to be happening with cannabis in Virginia. Whoa. I can tell you that if I'm invested in cannabis, I would definitely invest in cannabis that is distributed in Virginia based on seeing this bill and how recent it is, because it's a proposed amendment. So that means it changes an existing bill to certain sections of the Code of Virginia, meaning it's going to change the core law of Virginia, related to the board of directors of the Virginia Cannabis Control Authority. So that's the people who were put together by the state to decide on all things related to selling cannabis legally in Virginia. The bill aims to make changes to the membership criteria of the Cannabis Public Health Advisory Council, as well as the allocation of revenue collected by the board. Well, I didn't know the board collected revenue. That's really interesting. So key points, and again, this is an AI summary. The bill proposes changes to the membership of the Cannabis Public Health Advisory Council, including increasing the total number of members, specifying appointment criteria, and outlining the roles and responsibilities of the council. So they're changing, they're adding members and changing the criteria of who can be a member in a very powerful position, right? Deciding on everything that happens with cannabis in Virginia. It also outlines the composition and terms of the board of directors of the Virginia Cannabis Control Authority, including the appointment process and compensation of members. So this sounds to me like someone's friends want to be on the board, or some special interests want to be on the board of directors. Additionally, the bill addresses the deposition of revenue collected by the board, specifying how collected funds will be allocated to various programs and initiatives related to marijuana legalization and public health. Well, that's the bingo for this, guys. So if you live in Virginia, whether you're invested in cannabis or not, this affects you, or whether you use cannabis or not, right? This affects you because this says that the Virginia legislature is trying to, holy cow. All right. They're trying to increase from 21 to 25 the number of members. So they want to add people, 4 members. Oh, well, that's interesting, who've recovered from a substance use disorder and are not employed by a government entity. That's interesting and creative. But that nice gesture of let's have former drug addicts on the board regulating this legalized drug, the fine print says the bill requires that 40% of the board's net profits. Now, did you know in Virginia that there's a board that takes net profits from cannabis sales, I think? What are those profits? Are distributed to the Department of Behavioral Health and Development Services, allocated to certain, bingo, private certified recovery residences that provide low-cost, evidence-based substance use disorder treatment and recovery services and satisfy certain other requirements set forth in the bill. Bingo, bingo, bingo. I knew it. And this is an active bill. I think it passed. It looks like it passed. Left in general laws, pre-filed and ordered, printed, offered. And there's one sponsor, a Republican. Well, this says to me, I mean, this is very, very interesting. And again, this would affect your investment decisions in Virginia, because what you want to invest in is actually not it's not even cannabis. It's not cannabis. Obviously, cannabis has a huge future in Virginia, but so definitely you would want to look for companies selling cannabis in Virginia, state-specific outlets, state-specific distributors, or national cannabis companies that have a strong presence or planned growth in Virginia. But that's not all you want to invest in, knowing about this bill and the status of it. It looks like this is exactly the kind of sneaky bill that is never covered in the media. Basically, what is happening there is that an industry of drug treatment, like cannabis dependency drug treatment centers, is being established in Virginia, and someone's friends are going to get all the business. Someone's friends are probably setting up these facilities. I personally have never heard of a, drug-specific, marijuana-specific treatment program or treatment center. So what this means is that vast amounts, 40%, right, of the revenue collected by the Virginia board Cannabis Board, we don't know what that revenue is. We can look, but I'm guessing it's a large number, is going to be distributed, like checks are going to be written to the cronies of the board, who will then open a network of cannabis treatment centers and follow certain government, Virginia state government created protocols, nominally, who knows how good they'll be. But they'll get buckets and buckets and buckets of money. And this is very cynical because, you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to think, overnight cannabis was legalized in state after state after state. And it's a huge industry, right? It's making tons of profits for cannabis growers and distributors. But there's a secondary industry that may turn out to be even more lucrative, which is treating people with a cannabis dependency, right? And allocating your tax dollars to treat people with a cannabis dependency, which they might not have gotten if cannabis weren't everywhere legalized, really nice, charming, well-branded outlets. Let's see what the Virginia Cannabis Board revenue is. 2023, what is it? 1.9 million in expenditures. Virginia Cannabis Control Authority. So that's, oh my God. Cannabis tax revenue in 2023 alone, legalization generated more than $4 billion in cannabis tax revenue from adult use sales. So this is a huge industry. In Virginia, medical marijuana, quote unquote, is 1.83 million up to 2.58 million. So it's growing like, oh my God, 30% year over year. So people are getting high in Virginia like crazy. I'm not judging them. I'm just saying, this is what happens when you legalize marijuana in Virginia. And some of them are going to have like guaranteed with that 30% growth in sales every year. Some will have substance abuse problems. Now you've got almost $2 million a year for something you've never heard of in Virginia, the Cannabis Control Authority, to distribute money to their friends for treating some of those people. And you can expect that those funds will grow. So if you are really cynical, you'd be investing in the facilities that treat cannabis because they are going to be profitable, or they're at least going to be subsidized. And you'd be investing in cannabis. I prefer not to invest in things that hurt people. Maybe you could argue that cannabis treatment for substance abuse helps people, but anyway, that would be your pretty secure investment play there if you're invested in cannabis. And that's a much more granular, detailed set of data points for you to make a more risk-free investment. I mean, no investment is ever risk-free in Virginia with cannabis than you would investing blind in the cannabis industry. All right, that's it for me. Again, here's some more comments and questions. At our complex in New York, non-payment of common fees, damage, etc., we rescind all their privileges, i.e. pool parking, etc., and tow if not rectified. Works well when they have to walk. Well, that's a creative solution. And that kind of makes sense if you believe in property rights. So this is the incredibly newsworthy homepage, right? We could go on and on. Landlord Accountability Act, so much happening. But the way this is showing is top trending bills, meaning this is what has activity on it. Activity from users as well as activity in moving forward. Very interested in this for those of you, I just can't resist. See how addictive it is for those of you who are interested in pro-life. So this is a pro-life bill. I'm guessing that I'm going to see a lot of red at the bottom of this bill, and I do. There's Marsha Blackburn. I love her. And it's literally all red, no Dems. So once again, I'm not partisan. I'm totally not partisan. I'm an independent. And this platform is not partisan. And there's one Democrat. But you can see what these political parties are doing. You can see exactly what they're doing. They can't gaslight you and what's important to them. So this is a pro-life bill, and it's almost all, wow, it's got a lot of sponsors. A lot of people signed up for it. It's a popular bill. Let's see what it is. And then I promise I'll stop. Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. I see why no Democrats have signed on. This bill amends the federal criminal code to require any healthcare practitioner who's present when a child is born alive following an abortion or attempted abortion to basically look after the child, make sure it's admitted to a hospital. They define being alive as breathing, a beating heart, pulsation of the umbilical cord, movement, regardless of whether the umbilical cord has been cut. And a healthcare practitioner or other employee who has knowledge of a failure to comply with these requirements must immediately report such a failure to an appropriate law enforcement agency. So this is a pretty powerful bill. An individual who violates the provisions of this bill is subject to a criminal fine up to 5 years in prison or both. And if you kill a living child, you're subject to criminal prosecution for murder. And it's still in committee, but you can get it out of committee. And a woman who undergoes an abortion or an attempted abortion may file a civil action for damages against an individual who violates this bill. In other words, lets a baby be born alive and then lets it die or neglects it to death. By the way, this is a very important bill if you're pro-life to pass at the federal level. I'm surprised that it hasn't passed. And here's the text of the bill. Again, it's not a huge bill. It's pretty short. It's understandable. A lot of bills aren't. But the reason you want to pass this if you're pro-life, and I can't even imagine a pro-choice person having a problem with this bill, honestly. I mean, the kid is born, for God's sake. Is that there are now bills in at least 2 states, in Maryland and Washington state, and I've seen them and they've passed, which get around this proposed bill by letting doctors and other healthcare workers basically neglect a living baby to death. There are no criminal or civil penalties for, the actual bill allows healthcare practitioners to not face any kind of punishment for neglecting a baby to death. The reason that's such a big deal, you guys, and many of you will want to wrap your brains around this if you're pro-life or pro-choice. I mean, I cannot imagine even the most fervent pro-choice person who's not in the abortion industry is going to want a living baby to die. But organ harvesting, there's these babies' bodies and aborted fetuses' bodies have value in the genetics and organs and stem cell industry. There's a lot of biological products that are harvested, farmed from aborted fetuses. I mean, OMG Network did a really fabulous, terrifying expose of an undercover conversation in which abortion providers were acknowledging that there is a marketplace for organs. So an organ from a living baby is, much more valuable, which is, again, side note, why you don't want to have an organ donation card, because there's, I'm now persuaded hospitals declare brain death, which is not actual death, so that your organs can be harvested. So that's something to know. I can't believe we're having this conversation, but that Washington bill and that Maryland bill would not be allowing babies to be neglected to death if this federal bill passed. So this seems, I'm pro, with great regret and conflictedness and doubt in my soul, pro-choice briefly in a pregnancy, because I don't know, how women would look after their existing children, make decisions about their lives if abortion were completely illegal and women did die in back alleys when it was completely illegal. That said, this is the kind of bill that should have bipartisan support, for God's sake. It's a living baby, and it doesn't. So that says something. And again, if you're pro-life, you want to pass this bill because the neglect to death trend and the incentives are, creating bad legislation in at least 2 states. All right, that's our presentation. You've been really patient, but I'm glad to see lots of people have joined us live, and you're as interested in in actually affecting legislation as I am. So here's what I want you to do, and you can go to the industry search, and you can choose, once you're subscribed, you can choose your industry. You can go into your account, and that's my complimentary account. And you can go to the homepage, and you can even search specifically. And you need to sign in for that, but you can subscribe to the full portal, right? And so there you can see, I mean, I love this. This is just agriculture, and you can see every top trending bill for agriculture, foreign ownership of agricultural land in Missouri. And that's a very recent bill. Oh, see, I could just go on forever. So if you're a farmer, you really, really want to sign up for this portal. And you can do most recent first, or you can do top trending. And you can keep track on what's going on with agriculture at a state by state level or federally, but you see every single state there. And, if you own land, or you're farming, or you're producing anything in any of these states, you really want to sign up for this portal. Anyway, I could do this all day. I love it, love it, love it. But our time has come to an end. If you care, I'm frozen on X. They forced me to go back and delete all my sponsored posts or posts about my sponsors going back to September 2024. They keep locking me out and forcing me to delete them. That's how we make our revenue to bring you amazing tools like this, that and subscriptions. So I cannot speak to 450,000 people. I may be back on X, but I'm not going to keep deleting sponsor links as long as it's punitive and selective, because everybody else is not being asked to delete sponsor links. So I don't want to violate anyone's terms of service, but that seems like very targeted punishment of me compared with other content producers in my field, or in the independent media space. So I will ask you please to support this incredible project, which is going to change everything, by going to legisector.com, starting your free trial, or starting an account. Again, it's $138 a month. I know that's more than a lot of people can spend on personal subscriptions. But if you are a nonprofit, as you've seen, if you're an investor, if you're an accounting firm, if you're a healthcare provider or owner or hospital or clinic, if you're a hedge fund manager, an investor of any kind, if you invest in real estate, it's absolutely worth it to your company, your business, to have a LegiSector account. We undercut our competitors, as I mentioned, and I mean, we're cheaper and easier to use. And it helps us keep bringing you these incredible tools and actually changing bills. So right now you're seeing democracy die in Europe. They don't have a LegiSector and they don't have a bill cam. You do. So we can keep an eye on our legislation. We can actually affect it and protect our investments, our assets, our communities, and our awareness of what's going on behind the scenes. LegiSector.com, sign up, share. Let me know what you think. You're my beta testers, essentially. It's a brand new launch. So let me know what you want to see changed or improved or added. And you can always write to me at naomi@dailyclout.io. This is me signing off and thanking you for joining me. And let me know if you like this kind of segment. I'll share most important bills twice a week if you think I should, and tell you what they mean from LegiSector. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful Tuesday. Bye-bye.